You wake up with the metallic taste of dried blood in your mouth. The awakening is not a relief. It is the return to a reality heavier than the stone blocks of Giza. The air inside the tent is a solid mass, stagnant heat, the acidic smell of 30 unwashed bodies, mixed with cheap sandalwood oil, trying to mask the stench of latrines. Before you even open your eyes, your body registers the pain, your wrists burn. The rough palm fiber rope has fused with your skin, creating a hard crust. You try to move your fingers, but the rope stretches, the skin breaks, and a warm trickle of blood runs down your arm again. The heat here is a physical sledgehammer, crushing your lungs with every breath. You are lying on the beaten earth, covered only by a frayed mat that offers no protection against the dawn's chill. In the gloom, you hear the symphony of misery, stifled sobs, moans of untreated infections, and the dry sound of teeth grinding in nightmares. You are no longer a person. You have no name. The name your father gave you in Wasit evaporated. It vanished when the copper coins changed hands. For the men trading outside, laughing and drinking warm beer, you are just a lot, a piece of fertile stock. You have only 14 seasons of the Nile flood, but your eyes carry 1,000 years of darkness. They do not want your mind, or your skill in weaving linen. They want your womb. They want to transform your biology into profit for the empire, and they will take what is theirs. There was a time before the darkness. You force your memory through the pain. You remember the smell of fresh lotus in Thebes. You were not nobles, but you were free. Your hands were soft, stained only with ink, not with calluses and dirt. You ran through the reeds in the season of Shemu, laughing under the orange sun. The Valley of the Kings was majestic, not an omen of death. The world was vast. You dreamed of a garden of fig trees. You thought the just Mot watched over you. What a fool. You did not know that the gods of the poor are deaf, and luck in Egypt is as volatile as the river level. Innocence was ripped away in one night, by vice. Your father, addicted to Senet, bet what he didn't have, and lost his own life. When the collectors arrived, mercenaries with hearts of stone, there was no negotiation. They pointed at you. You remember the hollow sound of the club hitting your mother. She fell soundlessly, like a rag doll. It was the last image of home, her bleeding in the mud. Your father crying in the corner, a coward, unable to look at you while you were dragged away. The journey up the Nile was in a cargo hold, in the dark, mixed with cattle, the constant nausea, the smell of vomit and urine of other girls crying until they lost their voices. There you learned. Silence is your only defense. Crying attracts bored guards looking for fun. You shrank behind barrels, invisible, holding your breath until your lungs burned. When the hatch opened, the light was a knife. You were pulled out, stumbling. It was not a public market. It was the Per-Khener of a corrupt official in the western desert. Not a luxury harem, but a biological factory hidden by high walls, designed to keep the horror in. Your first lesson was to disappear. The matron, a huge Nubian woman, spoke the language of pain. In her hand, a green cane rod. "Look at the ground," she hissed. You, with a remnant of pride, raised your chin. The crack was immediate. The rod tore your back. You fell. Look. At the soiling ground. Another blow. You learned fast, raise chin, get beaten, cry, get beaten, protect your body, get no food. Shame was the first thing they killed. They inspected your teeth and hips in the courtyard as if you were a pack animal for sale in Memphis. They shaved your head with a dull blade. The long hair fell in dead clumps. You felt your identity severed. You received a tunic of raw linen, thick as sandpaper, keeping your skin raw. The breaking routine began, brutal labor, carrying water under the sun until blisters formed, grinding grain until your joints screamed, and the wheat dust mixed with the blood from your palms. But physical pain was background noise. The goal was psychological, to convince you that the flower girl never existed, that you were always a voiceless tool, a womb with legs. In the season of Akhet, the inundation, madness took over. The guard was distracted. You saw an open gate. Your heart beat like a trapped bird. You ran. The air of freedom tasted of dust. You touched the wood of the gate. Saw the desert. But the Medjay dogs sniffed your fear. The bark was terrifying. Strong hands twisted your arms until the shoulder snapped. They didn't kill you. Death would be mercy. Merchandise is marked. They dragged you back. The master came down with an orange-hot iron. The smell of your burning skin invaded your nostrils, sweet and cloying, like roast meat. While you screamed, something inside you broke. It wasn't a bone. It was hope. You looked at the empty sky. No one would come. That smoking brand was the deed to your soul. To cement possession, they used religion. A priest preached that your suffering was the will of Mat, the cosmic order. Resisting was Isfet, chaos. Your bodies are altars, he said. Generating life for the pharaoh is a sacred duty. He twisted the words into mental chains. You recited hymns of gratitude for the rotten food. Weak. You started to believe. Maybe you had sinned. Maybe you deserved this. At 15, you became a vessel. The routine changed. Less work. A little more food. Only because a skeletal body cannot hold a pregnancy. When the men entered, merchants, officers, nephews, you used absolute dissociation. They entered smelling of sour wine. At the touch of the rough hand, you activated the mechanism. Your mind left the body with a violent pull. You left the shell on the mattress and floated to the ceiling. That thing down there wasn't you. You focused on tiny details. A crack in the wall. Counting grains of sand. 1, 2, 3, 1,000. While your body was invaded, your mind went to a white room. There, the air smelled of jasmine. You were sitting at your grandmother's feet. Safe. Embroidering linen with gold threads. The needle went up and down. Safe. The sound of the man's breathing turned into wind in the palm trees. If you concentrated on the gold thread, the pain became distant, echo underwater. You turned to stone. If you don't feel, they can't hurt you. That lie kept your sanity. The years dragged on, measured by cycles of pregnancy and loss. At 18, the first child, they let you hold him for minutes. Time to feel your heart open, before tearing him away. Slaves produced servants, not children. The milk hardened by pain was the only reminder. At 22, your body collapsed. Calcium sucked by the babies. Teeth fell out. You chewed bread with bleeding gums. Deep stretch marks mapped your belly like dry rivers. Constant infections turned your womb into a source of pain. In the water's reflection, you saw an old woman in a young body, bent over, with the gaze of a dead fish. Utility in the Per-Khener is short. At 26, after a stillbirth where you almost bled to death, the master decided you had dried up, not profitable. In Egypt, what is useless is discarded. You weren't killed. It would be a waste. You were sold as an old pack animal to a brutal potter. The transition was from one hell to another. Instead of violated in the dark, you were broken under the sun, carrying baskets of wet clay heavier than your skeleton, until back pain was your only company. Time became a gray blur. Pharaohs died. Ramses erected statues. The world changed, but your life was mud and hard bread. Your voice atrophied into a grunt. One day, something changed. The potter died. The gate remained open. You were discarded on the street like a cracked pot. Freedom tasted like ashes, guided by instinct. You walked weeks to Thebes, begging, sleeping with dogs. When arriving at the street of your childhood, the shock was worse than the whip. The brick house disappeared, replaced by stone. Strange faces averted their gaze with disgust from the skeletal beggar. You found a cousin in the market. He looked at you with horror and distant pity, gave dried fish, but didn't invite you in, didn't want your curse in the family. You tried to say, "It's me, the Lotus Girl." But the words died in your dry throat. You realized that girl had died a long time ago. The truth fell like a stone. You survived biologically. Your heart beats. But you died on that boat, decades ago. The woman there was a ghost, an empty shell full of echoes of closed rooms. You walked to the Nile. The water ran, eternal and indifferent, washing away time. And the pain of thousands like you. You sat on the bank, living statue of suffering. You knew you wouldn't live much longer. And, for the first time, knowing the end was near, brought peace. This is what the hieroglyphs do not tell. The pyramids were built on the backs of men, but the future of Egypt was built on the silenced wombs of women. History remembers the kings. But the desert sand is the only witness to the forgotten daughters, ground down to feed the empire's machine. And the silence of the desert is the loudest sound that exists.